Hi, I'm Sam McCrea. I'm an actor in the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area.
Hi, my name is Luke Cieslewicz. I'm a DC-based actor. Please join us in conversation. So you're an actor in the area.
Sure.
And what got you started? Like, how did you get started with acting?
I just saw an advertisement in the newspaper for an audition at a community theater once. And I said, hey, that looks like fun, you know? So I thought I'd give it a try. And I went and auditioned. It was for a musical, you know, with a large cast, because I didn't have any experience. And I auditioned, and they asked me to sing. I didn't think I could sing a note, but I sang anyway, you know, the thing they gave me. And they gave me a part in the ensemble. You know, I didn't have any lines for the first play, but it was a lot of fun. So after I did that one, I thought, hey, this is fun, you know, and it's something I can do, because I still had my day job, you know, and I couldn't do any acting in the daytime. And the good thing about the community theaters is you can audition at night, you know, and the plays are run on weekends, so it didn't interfere with my job. So it worked out just great.
Was that in D.C. where did it happen?
That was in Virginia, a suburb of Virginia, Sterling, you know, which is about 20, 25 miles from Washington, D.C.
Cool, cool.
Yeah. How about you? How did you get started?
Well, I mean, I went to school for acting, you know, in college and everything. And then when I graduated, I actually moved to Milwaukee when I first graduated to try to do some theater there. But, you know, I was not finding enough work or whatever there, so I wanted to move somewhere else. And I was thinking about maybe going to Chicago, because I had a lot of friends in the area, and it's also in the Midwest. But then, you know, I heard about D.C. because my brother lived here. He does like film kind of stuff. So he was like, hey, you should check out DC. It's a great community and all that kind of stuff. A lot going on. And he had some connections that he got me in touch with then too, to be like, hey, talk to them and you can ask them questions. And I did some like internet research and stuff like that too. So, you know, I found out that actually, you know, there's a really, really good and vibrant, you know, kind of theater community here.
Yeah.
You know, that I learned from talking to people and from doing that research and such. It's interesting because you don't really think about, you know, DC necessarily as kind of a huge arts area,
right, like
you know,
Hollywood,
it's like you think about government or whatever, you know, or politics and whatnot. But yeah, so then I moved here, and you know, I think I was here for about 4 months or so before I got my first gig, and been fortunate to be working pretty consistently since, which is really nice. And like you said about the community theater thing too, I haven't really done any of the community theater shows, but a lot of the stuff that I do, you know, is stuff where they realize that you know, you got to have the day job too. You're not they're not paying you quite enough to just kind of quit that. But you know, some really good work though really happens here. I mean, have you had any good experiences? What's maybe your favorite experience in the area?
Favorite, I guess, was I worked on House of Cards, which was done for Netflix.
Yeah.
And that's in the Baltimore area. And they've done some shooting in D.C. too, but most of it is done in Baltimore.
I feel like that happens with a lot of stuff they shoot around here, like film and stuff. It seems to happen more outside of D.C.
Yeah, outside the immediate area.
Yeah.
And but I guess I don't really have a favorite. I like all showbiz, you know, I like stage, you know, theater. I like movies, TV. I've even done a few commercials, you know. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Like what kind of commercials?
Car commercials, lawn care products, you name it.
whatever they call you in for.
Yeah, whatever comes up. Yeah.
And how do you usually find stuff like that?
There are several good websites. Dragonuck Connects is a good
I'm
one.
on that one too. Yeah.
And then there's several Yahoo groups and Google groups.
Oh, there's a Google group too. I'll have to look up that one.
Right.
I'm part of the Yahoo group. Like
yeah,
DC
they cater
Theater.
to actors, you know, and showbiz stuff. And then Central Casting is a good one, you know, for finding parts as an extra or background actors, you know.
Is that how you got the House of Cards information?
Yes, that was Central Casting.
Yeah.
Yes. And some of the ones, I've been in a couple of the investigation discovery television shows too.
Through them?
Not through them, through Dragonuck Connects.
Yeah, I've seen that stuff there before too.
That's an internet site, and that's a really good one.
Yeah, because you can like put up your resume and stuff for free, which is awesome.
Yeah, your resume, pictures, you can put pictures up, you know, and you know, your experience and the things, kind of work you're looking for. Like if you're looking for voiceovers or narration, stuff like that, you can include that as well.
Have you been doing that stuff too? I'm trying to get into that myself, so if you have any tips, I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, I've done some of that. Yeah, you can start off, it's hard to break into unless you've had some experience, you know, it's one of those things. But you can find things that you can do where you don't get paid, you know, to get experience. And then once you've had experience doing a few of those things, then you can find the paid gigs, you know. But yeah, there are a lot of them out there that are free. They're public service messages. You know, a lot of the federal government agencies do public service messages, and you can do those for free. You know, and you can do that to get acting experience as well. You know, and on-camera experience.
Oh,
you know?
totally.
So, and then if you do, you can do narration of some commercials, you know, or a background voice for commercials and stuff like that.
I have some friends who do audiobooks too. I know that.
Yeah, that's another
few
one.
Places in the area.
That's another one. You can start off doing those for free for some organizations.
Yeah.
And then you can go into the paid work once you've got enough experience.
I've done a little bit of stuff, so I think that you had like a reel together or something, right? That's what I need to do is like make a tape, or I guess it's not really even tape anymore, right? It's like a digital file, but
yeah, that's a good thing about a lot of the internet sites. You can put your reel out there, and you know, people can go out and see the kind of work you've done, you know, and whether or not they think they can use you in a play or a commercial or, you know, whatever they have going.
Yeah, I mean, like I've definitely noticed, you know, I've gotten a lot of through Dragonook. I know a lot of the theater stuff that I've done and stuff, and they do some kind of. I don't know if you've ever been in like the cattle calls that they do, you know, like it's kind of the term or whatever when you have the big group of people and you go in front of like a bunch of different theater companies at once and stuff. And there used to be one that I think Theater Washington did, and they stopped doing recently, but like a couple of years ago. But when I first moved out here, they were still doing it. I think that was a great way, you know, to kind of get your stuff to just as many people as possible. Right. You know, just got to get it out there and see what you can do or whatever. And I mean, like it's. At the same time, it's definitely helps to like just get out there, you know, and get some exposure and start meeting people.
Right.
I think that was a big thing that helped me anyway. I know when I first moved out here was like a friend of a friend, you know, knew someone. I went and chatted with, you know, a artistic director of a theater company, Molotov Theater, which is the first one that I worked with out in DC here. They specialize in this. It's called Grand Guignol, which is this like French horror theater. It's kind of it's a lot of fun, you know, a lot of like blood flying. And
my kind of show.
Yeah, exactly, that kind of stuff. And that was a lot of fun and really cool, you know, and kind of like got that first, you know, work here then in DC, you know, which was kind of nice to kind of break that ice. Yeah. You know, because then you start meeting people, and I know also we have the Fringe Festival here. Have you ever done anything with that? I know that's pretty.
No, not yet. I haven't done. You've done some of the 48-hour
film.
Movie. Yeah, film.
Yeah. I've done those too. That's a lot of fun. You know, and I think it actually started here in DC too, the 48-hour film project, if I remember correctly, because I've gone to like a couple of the screenings and stuff then too. That they do. You know, like after all the groups are done or whatever, and you go there and they show your film. You see the other ones. It's just a lot of fun. Have you done the 48 at all?
Yeah, I've done one of those, and that's another good way for young actors or people just starting out who want to get into acting to start. You know, because most of them are non-paid. Yeah. A few might pay a small amount or something, but that's not the point. The point is just to do them for the experience. You know?
Yeah, and you get to meet a lot of other people.
Right. And speaking of that, anytime you go to an audition or anything, you should always take a bunch of your business cards, you know, and pass them out, because word of mouth is a lot of times the way you get parts, you know. And, you know, people remember you from a previous audition, say, oh, I remember that guy, you know, I'll call him and see if
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Like there's definitely sometimes I go to auditions where I don't necessarily maybe fit the part perfectly or whatever, you know, but I'm like, I just kind of want to go because it's a stretch, you know, maybe it could happen, who knows, but then at the same time, like you said, you kind of get that exposure, you know, and you kind of get that casting director or whoever, and you put your stuff in front of them and you do your audition or whatever, and so maybe at some point, you know, they might then come back and be like, oh, hey, remember that guy, Sam, he came in here, or Luke, they came in here, you know, 2 months ago for a different show, well, we're doing this thing now, and they might be good for that. Because they might call you back in, which is always... Yeah,
that's a great way to get parts, you know, is through people you know and, you know, previous auditions and things like that. And speaking of auditions, you can find out about those through the Dragonook site as well, and through some of those email lists, you know, from the Yahoo groups.
Yeah, DC Theater is the one that I belong to, the Yahoo group.
Yeah, it's another good one,
And I know there's also a program that I joined when I first moved out to DC, because I think it's really great to kind of help get you started, because you have like this network is Actors Center. That was one you have to pay for. But I know that like it really helped me to kind of like I said, kind of get connected when I first moved out here and didn't really know anyone. You know, I knew a few people through my brother or whatever. Like I said, like the friend of a friend who was the artistic director. But like it just kind of helped having that connection right away. I mean, like I said, and it wasn't much. I think it was like $50 for the year or something. You know, and they have like classes and stuff that they do too. But the problem with stuff like that, and have you taken any classes in the area? Have you done anything with that?
No, surprisingly I haven't. I mean, I've thought about it, but I've been able to get the parts, that I wanted and stuff like that. Yeah. Not always, of course, you don't get every part you want, but I've been able to get enough parts that I really haven't felt the need to take any classes or anything. But I yet may take some,
Yeah.
You've taken some, right?
In the area, I haven't really. I went to school for theater, and I keep telling myself that because there's a few of them where they have dialect classes and that's a bit more focused.
Right.
That I've always thought or some stage combat stuff. Additionally, maybe something that's a bit more specific skill. That maybe I could work to hone or whatever. Because I think that's the thing though too is you're constantly learning.
Yeah.
Even if you're just just doing shows or plays or movies or whatever,
right.
You're constantly learning something.
Exactly.
Even if you're not
right.
paying someone to teach you.
Yeah. You never stop learning. That's
no,
right.
It's totally true.
And you learn a lot just from going to auditions. You see other actors, and you see some incredible talent at the auditions. People that I would think should be on Broadway or in Hollywood, and you can learn a lot from watching other people.
Yeah, because I think the important thing obviously is you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So you go to these auditions that person could be on Broadway, and maybe they will be. In 5 years, 10 years, maybe next year. Who knows? That's really one of the interesting parts of this business.
Right.
Is you just never know who's going to be in that room and what that opportunity is going to lead to or whatever, to come next or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is another thing I think that, to go back for a second to the classes, I think that's one other thing, especially for newer people in the area, but also I think for people who've been here for a while. I mean, I have some friends who, have been acting in DC pretty regularly for the past, maybe 3-4 years or so, but they, they're still going to classes and stuff like that because I think it just helps to get that exposure, especially in theater. I think, especially if you're looking at some of the bigger theater companies like Shakespeare Theater, who has their own classes, and studio theater. It's kind of a nice way to not only learn something, but then also you're working with people who direct there or who cast there, and stuff like that. So you're kind of working with them the whole time to kind of help you to learn more. Also.
Yeah, I'm not putting that down. That's good, And but you can do both. You can take classes, and you can just get experience from being in place and acting and being around other people, watching other people and learning from other people, especially.
No,
and,
I agree.
It is incredible the audition process, how much you can learn, by watching others, and by realizing the mistakes you made in that audition. For example, if you don't get a part,
Yeah, it's what did I do wrong?
You learn from your mistakes.
Well, I think at the same time though too, and this was told to me one time, I went to a workshop thing or whatever about auditioning, and the big important thing for me is remembering what you can control and what you can't control.
Right.
And I think especially when you're talking about somebody who don't get those parts that you might want or whatever, because maybe they went in a different direction, or whatever. They wanted someone who had different colored hair, even. There's this stuff that you can prep and you can work your butt off and learn, memorize your scene or whatever, and really work on what you can work on. But there's other stuff that's beyond your control. Maybe they're having a crappy day, and so then you go in there and that's just what happens. So I think that's important to keep in mind too. Is not to get discouraged,
right?
Because there are so many different reasons that you might not have gotten cast.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, never get discouraged when you don't get the part. Just get yourself back up off the floor and dust yourself off and go on to the next one.
Yeah.
And there are tons of auditions around. Even just community theater in this, in the D.C., Virginia, Maryland area, there are probably about 50, if not more, at least 50, I would say, community theaters.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of the semi, what I call semi-pro, I guess. It's professional theater, too, where it's not necessarily the equity houses, the union houses, like the Shakespeare and Folger and Woolley and Signature and those other ones, but you also get a lot of other companies that I've worked with, over the past, Flying V and New Sass and Wandering Souls and all these other companies, and Molotov that I already mentioned, and the new company that I worked with too. I had a lot of fun the last show that I did. It was Perchance to Dream. It was a Shakespeare 12th Night, and it was puppets and stuff. So so you get these kind of interesting experiences though too when you work with some of these new companies or smaller companies, because sometimes they're willing to take more chances.
Right. What was the name of this one again? The Shakespeare?
Oh, the company is called Perchance to Dream, and it was a production of 12th Night that I just did. And I'm finding myself, I don't know, and what you've been working with mostly in in your theater and stuff, but I find myself focusing more, or sometimes gravitating more towards, or maybe it's just more what I get cast in, is more the classics, like the Shakespeare. Because I just did that, and I'm going to be doing a Romeo and Juliet with Brave Spirits, and then I'm going to be doing for the Fringe Festival. That's one reason I want to talk to you about that, or to see if you had anything like that, because I love that. It's a great opportunity, not just doing the shows, and I'm doing a show with Palace Theater for Fringe. It's a collection of Chekhov plays. But it's a great place to just meet people too. Yeah. And I think like especially if you're interested in doing some more theater and stuff, you should just go, because there's this huge like tent bar area where you like hang out kind of between shows or whatever, and just like there's always a lot of people there, and kind of the networking thing that you're talking about. Yeah,
sounds cool. And where is the French festival usually held?
Well, it's kind of all over DC. There's the main hub, which is like New York and I think 6th Northwest.
Okay.
New York Ave and 6th, but that's kind of like the main like fringe building. But then they have spaces kind of all over, wherever they can find them. And there's some companies too that find their own spaces,
right?
And work in that too. So and I've been fortunate enough to work. I don't know if you've ever heard of like Forum Theater or Rorschach Theater. Those are some other good ones that I've worked with in town before too. So it's a lot of just, like you said, kind of getting out there and making yourself available, and it's a very nomadic lifestyle too. It's kind of you move from thing to thing, and you kind of work on whatever you can work on.
Yeah, exactly. And I've worked with probably about 15 all told community theaters in this area. Yeah. And even though I live in Virginia, I've actually done a play in Maryland, and it's quite a long haul,
The drive or whatever, getting up there,
like 50-mile round trip or something like that. But it's worth it, it's a lot of fun, and you're doing what you enjoy, it's worth it.
I agree entirely. I mean, I think like, I have, you mentioned a day job, and I have a day job too, kind of thing, where it's like, you doing that for 8 hours a day or whatever, and then you're going to do your theater as well, or your film or your TV, and I feel personally that I am more energized, when I'm working, even though I have less time, maybe for sleep or whatever. Who needs it anyway? But you just find yourself really kind of more uplifted by being able to do your art.
Right. Yeah.
Cheesy as that sounds sometimes.
No, it's what you love. If you love it, do it. Even if you don't get paid, if you have to do it for free, And you do have to make some sacrifices, You have to give up some things that you would normally be doing with that time,
Yeah.
But it's fun and it's worth it, and I wouldn't go back and change anything. I would do just what I did.
How long have you been working in the arts?
Since 2004.
Okay.
So 9 years?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. How about you?
I mean, kind of all along, going back to high school at least, and then working in, in college. Like I said, I studied it and stuff. So just like, it's something that I always knew I enjoyed and I wanted to do, but I wasn't sure, probably until I got into college. Like, do I want to like actually pursue it, as a career? And it wasn't probably until probably like sophomore year I did this show. It was an awesome experience. It was like the Oscar Wilde Salome, which was written in French, but we translated it into English, and then we did this like combination of Eastern theater styles. So it was like Kyogen and No and Kabuki, all these like Japanese theater styles. It was just so eye-opening, because like I mentioned, sometimes too, the smaller companies in town, you have an opportunity to take more risks in those sorts of things. I mean, you still need to get butts in seats, but like you're not as beholden to as many people, I feel, maybe as like a Shakespeare theater or someone larger. Or Signature or something. But in college also, you're more free to kind of experiment, a little bit and take some chances in those sorts of things. So definitely really enjoyed that. That was a great experience.
Yeah, that sounds like fun. Which college did you go to?
The University of Notre Dame.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
In Indiana, or?
Yeah, in Indiana.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, South Bend.
The big one, yeah.
Yeah. The Irish, yes.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
What made you decide, in 2004 to start kind of doing it? I mean, like you said, you saw an advertisement or something.
It just looked like something interesting to do, you know. And
had you been like a fan of like art before that?
I've always been a movie and stage theater fan, but I just thought, well, let me try it,
Sure.
And I tried it and I was hooked.
Yeah.
Once you get hooked,
that's what they say, the bug or whatever.
Once you get the bug, you never lose it. And that's the good. Getting back to people who are starting out or people who want to get into acting. that's the good thing about community theaters, and especially about musicals and other plays that have large casts, because they just about always need people for the ensembles. You know, you don't have any lines or anything, but it's a good way to get experience, you know, and be around other actors who do have lines, so you can observe and see how they do things and how they do a scene and stuff like that.
Yeah, and you mentioned that before, like being able to like observe other people doing their craft and kind of learning, you know, from them as they do it. And I know that's one thing interesting about some auditions that you go to, because some of them, like, you're taken to a room by yourself, or not, you know, by yourself, but like just you, and the casting people, you know. And sometimes I've done some auditions too, where it's kind of fun because you get to actually sit in the room while other people do their monologues and stuff, so you kind of see what they're doing. You know, if nothing else too, sometimes I like to get ideas for other monologues for myself. You know, hey, that's a pretty good one. I might want to, you know, file that away and keep that for later. But what is kind of your process, you know, that you go through, like when you do auditions and stuff like that? Like, what is your kind of prep?
Well, before you go to one, you should know something about the play. You know, you can either buy the play itself, or you can go to libraries and check the plays out. You know, I've done that. And
sometimes Wikipedia.
Yeah, Wikipedia, anything on the internet, you know, that has information about the play, and find out as much as you can about it, and decide which parts you want to audition for, you know, and practice those. Just practice those at home. You know, just read the lines from your script and practice them. You know, as silly as it sounds, just stare in the mirror and watch yourself. You know, and try different voices. You know, different inflections and accents and stuff like that. And then once you've done that, just go to the audition, you know, and take your chances, you know. And sometimes casting directors will give you information about what they're looking for.
Totally, yeah.
But sometimes they won't either. They just kind of leave it to you to wing it, and then they, you know, decide what it is they like about your audition, and maybe if you're lucky, you get the part, you know. But yeah,
cross your fingers, right?
Yeah, but definitely prepare. You know, I mean, occasionally you can go in cold maybe, and you might luck out and get a part. But it's best to be prepared. You know, to study just like you would for a job interview. Sure. You know, study like you would for a job interview.
Looking up information about the company or whatever, and trying to get you know, figure out more about them and what they're doing. And
right. And,
yeah, I think that's a good point. You know, it's like I said, I think it goes back to those things that you can control versus the things you can't control. You can control your prep. You know, you can control how much time you spend getting ready for that and looking at sides or working on your monologue or whatever. But obviously, then too, there are those, like you mentioned, like the cold readings, you know, or whatever. And sometimes that just kind of happens. They don't even send you the stuff ahead of time. They just like show up, and then we'll give it to you. Because you know, I don't. It'd be interesting to see sometimes, like maybe talk to some casting people. I haven't really had the opportunity to ask them, like, you know, what the difference is there, you know, and what they're looking for, maybe with a cold read versus, you know, a more prepared kind of thing. And one thing that I remember talking to a friend about too, like when you're given a side ahead of time. In your preparation, you know, it's good to really know and be familiar with the character and the situation and those sorts of things, but also you don't want to be so necessarily completely memorized off book and so like set in your ways, because then the director might see that and be like, well, this person thinks, I don't know how easy they're going to be to work with, because they already have a very set idea about what the character is and that sort of thing. You know, they might not, you know, be able to work with me, you know, as the director, work with me to develop that character in the ensemble. Right.
That's a good point, and that's another thing I forgot to mention is as you're reading by yourself or whatever, try to do it in 2 or 3 different styles, because sometimes you're asked to read the same thing several times by a director, and he's looking to see if you can change, you know, or if you're just one-dimensional, you can only do it one way.
Yeah, that's always nice when you're at an audition, and I always take it as a positive sign anyway. Maybe it isn't always a positive sign, but I always take it as one. When they're like, oh, can you do that again, but try it, you know, like this, or do this change or whatever. Because it's like, oh, well, maybe they're interested then, and you know, they want to see, like you said, how multifaceted you are, you know, as an actor, and what kind of things that you can do to really kind of change the part around if necessary. Because like I said, I think a lot of it boils down to, I think, to, you know, how easy you are to work with, just like your work ethic, and like, you know, that's what you talk about, like knowing people, you know, and like kind of like getting the jobs, you know, starting somewhere, like you mentioned too, like getting that ensemble role or whatever, you know, just like you got to start somewhere, you work up or whatever, but also just like showing up every day, you know, on time, ready to do what you're supposed to do, off book if you're supposed to be off book, you know, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it takes a lot of discipline, you know, and especially if you have a lot of lines. You know, you have to really discipline yourself to practice and to learn and memorize those lines, you know. And but back to the directors, that especially at auditions, you know, if they ask you to do a scene in a different way, that's really crucial. You try to do it exactly as they ask, you know, and that's where you know, don't try to go off on your own. You know?
Yeah. Oh, you want me to do it like this? Let me do it like this.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's important too to, as you said, you know, really listen to what they say, and also ask for that clarification if necessary.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. I think sometimes actors go in and afraid.
Yeah.
And I mean, I understand like nerves and that sort of thing. Like you're going, especially if it's like a big audition, you're really excited about, like you mentioned before, the part you really want to get or whatever, you know. But at the same time, it's like, they don't want you to fail, you know? Like they want you to succeed too.
Yeah.
Like they're looking to cast this part and they want to get the best person possible. Right. So like, you know, work with them if necessary. Like if they have something that they give you a note and they want you to redo the scene, you don't totally understand it. Like don't like try to just muddle your way through. Right. You know, don't be afraid to ask those clarifying questions.
Exactly, you should. And if they'd rather not say, then they'd rather not say. Because like I say, a lot of times they want to just see what you come up with on your own. But it doesn't hurt to ask, you know, well, what are you looking for in this scene? You know, how would you like for me to do it? Or what sort of accent would you like me to use? Or what sort of body language? Do you want me to be angry or frustrated or, you know, that kind of thing?
How do you think the character's feeling and that sort of thing, which I think really comes out in the homework. You know, you were mentioning like when before you get, you know, to the audition and you're looking at the scene, you're looking at the play, you're looking at the character that you're auditioning for, and really kind of doing that. I don't know, this is going to maybe back into too much like school-y, talky kind of stuff, but you know, like the given circumstances and all that kind of stuff. You know, there's different, you know, teachers and everyone kind of has their own bag of tricks, and I think that everyone kind of pulls from what works for them. You know, I had a class that I took that was just basically just like, here's a bunch of different, you know, kind of theater professionals or whatever, kind of how they looked at acting. You know, like Meisner, Stanislavski, you know, all the big ones.
Right.
And so, but I think the important thing is too, is not to get too wrapped up in that stuff. You know, where it kind of becomes too rigid.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And I mean, like you mentioned, I mean, you kind of just came into this thing in 2004 and was like, hey, I'm going to do this. You know, and you just started doing it and you kind of work your way up and you kind of learn on the job too, basically, you know, kind of thing. Like you see in any kind of profession, you know, you might not be the most well-versed when you start, but you learn as you go along.
Exactly, yeah. And yeah, it doesn't hurt to read. You know, definitely, you know, read about, you know, the Meisner method, Stanislavski method, and things like that.
Spolin and whatnot.
And to be aware of those, you know. And, but also just study on your own, you know, even when you're not preparing for an audition, you know, just practice, you know, make up your own, or there are a lot of places where you can go out and find monologues, you know. Yeah. And just take one of those monologues and memorize it and practice, you know.
Which is interesting. I think it's like any kind of sport or activity, you know, where you don't want to get sloppy. You know, you need to practice, you need to rehearse, you need to continually work those muscles, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Especially singing. If you want to go into musicals and stuff like that, you really have to practice singing a lot.
Yeah.
Every day. Yeah,
just sing something. Yeah. You know, it's just like, just kind of work on that. And I think that's, you know, really what it boils down to is just it's a lot of hard work, but in the end, it's so worth it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's one of the most fun things I've ever done, you know, and I'll keep doing it, you know, I guess.
So fulfilling.
Yeah.
It's just like, I don't know.
Very fulfilling.
I don't know what else I would be doing. You know, that's the thing. And I think that's what they say, like, when you know you found your passion or whatever, is like you can't really see yourself doing something else.
No, it's definitely worth it. And for people who are thinking about going into it, I highly recommend trying it, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Give it a try.
And there's so many resources available. You know, all the courses that we mentioned, you know, the different theater companies, the different internet listservs or whatever that send out auditions and whatnot. There are a lot of different places that you can find the information that you need.
Right.